Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Racing Insiders podcast. I am Kate Dillon from Crate Insider, and of course, your host here on the Racing Insiders podcast. Tonight, we have a special guest, somebody that has a newer business in the racing industry, and I say newer as in the last few years. But I've been working with him for a while here, and I'm very happy to introduce you to Steve Brendle from ATC Bolts. So, Steve, welcome to the Racing Insiders podcast.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, really good. Well, thank you for being here, and
Thank you for having
really, you bet. And I just want to kick things off and tell us a little bit about your story, about your journey into the world of racing, and how you became involved in providing bolt and fastener packages for race cars.
So, I grew up racing my whole life. For the last probably 7 or 8 years, I started racing late models down here in Tampa, Florida, at East Bay and tracks around. And I was always an auto mechanic. I worked for diesel guys. I worked for Ring Power, Caterpillar. I worked for a lot of companies. And then a buddy of mine, actually the guy, that's my car behind us. The guy I had building my car and doing all this other stuff, he was like, hey, I'm going to start a bolt business. Cool. Well, he was up in Lake City, and I'm down here in Tampa, Florida. And I was like, well, if you want, I'll sell bolts down here in Tampa. I know a lot of guys. And he said, okay, cool. So we kind of did that for a year back and forth. I sold bolts down here. He sold a few up there, mostly body bolts, a few racing stuff here and there, not much. And then about a year later, he didn't want to do it anymore. He's like, hey, why don't you buy ATC bolts from me? It seems like you really want to do it. I was like, yeah, I really want to do it. I got this vision of what I think it could be. And he's like, cool. So I ended up buying everything from him. I bought all the stock, and I bought the name and everything it wasn't much established, but it was very small amount, but I bought it all, and I kind of turned it into what it is today. We've been doing it solid since 2019, but I quit my job in 2021, June of 2021, and I started doing it full time in July. Well, it was like right in the end of June, July. I was doing it full time. And matter of fact, I have some pictures of the very first show that I decided to go and be a vendor to, and it was in the back of my pickup truck. And I went to Rule King and bought a pop-up tent, and I had a buddy of mine make me a big ATC sticker that I was going to put on the back of my glass window. And I didn't use it yet, so I hung it. I put some clamps on the front of the table, and that's where we started. And I remember we went to Waycross, Georgia, for the first show. It's called the Borderline Brawl. It's a pretty big event down here, street stock event. And we went, and that's kind of how it all started. We just kept going. Your show was actually the very next show we ended up going to, outside of a few races down here for Speed Weeks. We did a few shows or a few races down here at Speed Weeks last year, or that first year, I'm sorry. And then we went to the car show, and that was the first time. I've never been to PRI. I've never been to any trade show, never been to any expo show or nothing like that. And to go to your show, and I'm like, wow, this is cool. And we did really good that show. That was actually probably to date one of the best shows we've ever done at the car show at Hickory.
Well, that's great to hear.
That's just a little small nitbit of how it all started.
Yeah, well, and I didn't know how the success at the Cars Racing Show compared to being trackside. And you go to a lot of events now, don't you?
We last year was our record year of the amount of trackside events and trade shows and whatever else we did. We did the Bristol Dirt Nationals last year, which wasn't a success by any means. I don't think it's a success for anybody, but it was definitely awesome. We spent a lot of money to go up there. We were able to sponsor the 602 series, the ATC Bolts 602 late models for the Bristol Dirt Nationals, and to be part of that and to see, my name up on the Jumbotron at Bristol was life-changing for sure. We did Eldora Million. That was a long ways for us. That was like 19-hour drive. It was a long ways. We ended up doing the Gateway Nationals. We won't be going back to the Gateway Nationals. It's just too far, and there's some other things going on there. But we went to PRI last year. We were able to share a booth with Dirt Car Lift. They're some good buddies of ours. This year, I think we are going to get a booth. We haven't quite locked that in yet, but we do plan on being there at PRI. It's kind of up in the air whether we decide to get a booth or we're just going to fly out there. We haven't decided yet. But we will be there. So whoever's listening and watching, come and find us if you guys need anything. And feel free to shoot me a text or an email saying, asking any questions as far as, are we going to be at a certain event, and if you guys wanted to save some money in shipping, and we could possibly meet you at the event. We call this pre-sales. So if you guys wanted to buy something and say, hey, I'm going to the Eldora World Nationals coming up, if we decide to go or whatever, which I don't think we're going to, it's a little last minute. But for an example, we could always bring product with us, save a bunch of money on shipping and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, because that can be pretty spendy.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Let us spend the money in diesel. But we did a lot of shows last year. We did all speed weeks down here at East Bay and Brunswick and Volusia. It's generally our more busy time of year is at the end of the year, Winter Nationals, all speed weeks, all the way up until May. We stay pretty well slammed up. Everyone's rebuilding and building because up north it's snowing, and it's just too cold to race. But down here it's perfect. It's the polar opposites for the guys that race in the south and the guys that race in the north. Is they always take a break from, late September, October, even November, and they don't race up until April or May or whenever the season kicks off up there. Down here, it's the total opposite. We start racing. We just started racing at East Bay back up. Last week was our second week back. We take the whole summer off. We don't race at all during the summer. For one, it's so hot down here, and it rains every day. It just rains every day, and it's just a waste of time to even try to race during the summer. But it's polar opposites. We do a lot of racing in the winter, more or less, than we do in the summer. We don't really race in the summer much at all.
I didn't know that. I mean, because in this area of the country here in North Carolina, we race pretty much year round. We race. Maybe not in December, but yeah, maybe. But then it all starts up again in January with speed weeks.
Yep, yep, for sure.
Yeah, always. So, you've really expanded your inventory as well. So you kind of started with a few body bolts more than anything else. And what has that grown into? What are the other fasteners that can you do every fastener on a race car at this point?
Yeah, so that's kind of our niche. When Anthony asked me if I wanted to buy this business from him, I was like, yeah. He originally had a vision of being a supplier, more or less, for the industrial and commercial side, which we do that as well. We're actually, believe it or not, we're switching back. Not switching, we're transitioning back a little bit more into that for the off seasons and whatnot, to take care of the suppliers, the builders, the manufacturers, and the fabricators, the guys that use stuff all year round, for them to restock in the summertime or in the off season, if you will. That's kind of where we originally started the business, in a wholesale sense. Buy it in bulk, save money, get the best price, drop ship, whatever. But now we have a whole second wing to that, is ATC Bolts, what everybody knows it as, is the fastener side. And the fastener side is anything that goes on a race car, we take care of it. We have chassis kits from Longhorn to Rocket to Warrior or to Savage chassis, and we do all the main brand chassis. And actually, we can do some custom stuff as well. We've had a couple guys reach out and say, hey, I've got this and that. If I send you a list, absolutely, send me a list. I'll make it. Not a problem. It's no different than making an XR1 kit to making somebody else's homemade car or an off-brand name or whatever that there's not many of. Send me a list. I'll just follow the list exactly the way you send it to me, and I'll build it however you want it. But we do everything from body kits, that's kind of where we started. It was easy enough to just start putting a kit together for all the guys that go through 10 bodies a year, some of the super guys or the elite classes. Or if there's just a small town guy like myself that just races one car every now and then and puts a body on at the end of the year, we have everything covered there. In comparison to prices, I mean, we're way out front when it comes to prices. There's a bunch of copycats out there trying to take the idea of the kits, but at the end of the day, we're just the best when it comes to building the kits. We're the original. We had the original idea. We put a lot of time and a lot of effort and quite a bit of money as far as figuring out how it all is going to work out for the kits. But we do chassis kits. We do body fastener kits. There's a little bit of everything that we do. There's not much that we don't do. We're really, like I said a little while ago, we're really kind of transitioning into more of a wholesale dealer specific program type deal. Such as yourself. You were one of our first dealers, matter of fact, to jump on. I think for the first car show that we went to, you and me kind of coordinated, and I brought you some stuff for that show. Am I right?
Yeah,
I think I brought you
some
kits. Yeah, I think I brought you some kits for that deal. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But you were one of the first dealers for us. We're kind of thinking that if we switch over, not switch, more or less just transition a little bit more towards the dealer side, it'll be more beneficial because we'll have, if we have 10 dealers, we have essentially 10 lines in the water, if you will, if you're, as far as that metaphor goes.
Yeah, but, 10 salespeople that are selling for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, for sure. We'll push a lot more stuff. I mean, when you compare our bolts to MotorState or to any big brand such as that, where 90% of racers are buying their stuff from anyways, they're like, oh, well, I've got a whole list of stuff from MotorState or from whoever they're buying it from. They might as well just throw in a pack of bolts or some rivets or whatever. They're paying an insane amount of money. I mean, I've done the math. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd to know how, and people don't realize that, man, I spent $400 on bolts last year and I got nothing left. If you spend $400 on bolts with us, you'll have enough bolts for the next 3 years, or you have to bring the high quality bolts, whichever one. But
well, and I'm sure there's the difference in the grades, and that was something that that I had to research a while back, and I can't really tell you the difference between a grade 5 and a grade 8 bolt, but I know that there's a reason why they're used in different places. Can you maybe talk about, that not all bolts are made the same, so that depending on your application, you may want to use one kind of a bolt or another kind of a bolt. Can you just talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, every application for a bolt has its own specific reason for it. Whether it's for, let's say, if you're using, oh, you got kicked off there.
No, I'm here. I'm just letting you take the stage here. So.
Oh, okay, thanks. So for, let's just say, stainless applications, that would be more of a marine side, or for any kind of outdoors, high where the applications are really harsh and the elements are really harsh. Generally, you want to use a stainless, but on a downside, stainless will never tarnish or rust or anything like that. But on a downside, stainless is a lot softer of a material than, let's say, a grade 8 bolt or a grade 5. That's just more or less on the stainless to the steel side or the zinc side. As far as grades go, it's hard to explain, but obviously everyone knows higher the grade, stronger the bolt. That is 100% true. But the same reasoning behind that is higher the grade, less forgiveness, I guess, the grade, like a grade 5 would have over a grade 8. The grade 5, yeah, it'll shear at, I don't even know, probably about 600 pounds of tensile strength or whatever. But a grade 8 bolt won't shear for double that, or several hundred pounds more. I always tell everybody, oh, well, grade 5 is more forgiving, it bends. you don't want anything to bend. Put a grade 8 in there, and it's you're good to go. I mean, if you bend a grade 8 bolt, I mean, you must have whacked something pretty hard. But if you had a grade 5 in there, or other than a grade 8, it would have just sheared it right off. Yeah, it would have bent farther before it did shear or break or give out or fail. But at the end of the day, you got that peace of mind that grade 8. Grade 8 is where it's at. But there's hundreds of thousands of applications out there. Just know that everything with a bolt is a give and take. If you want more of one thing or more application, you're going to have to give it up somewhere else at the end of the day. Just like I said with stainless. I mean, yeah, stainless, it's at first thought, stainless is, why don't we use stainless for everything? It never rusts. It never tarnishes. It's good for all the the elements. Why don't we use stainless for everything? Well, at the end of the day, stainless is a softer material than a grade 8. So like a 3/16 stainless bolt is equivalent to about a grade 5 to grade 4 bolt. Maybe some of the, depending on what application, if it's a countersunk or a cap screw. Fun fact, a cap screw or any kind of socket cap screw is going to be much, much stronger than any hex cap screw. Why that is, I'm not sure, but it's a fact that a cap screw is stronger than a hex cap bolt.
That's a surprise.
I don't know exactly the numbers. What's that?
That's a surprise to me, because I would think that I would just think that with a hex bolt, it would be far more integrated rather than having a cantilevered edge on it like a cap screw bolt would. So it's just an interesting thought.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Like it's really interesting, and I know most people don't wake up and say, "Man, I want to learn about bolts." When I first started this,
here we are.
Here we are. When I first started this, I had no knowledge about anything bolts. I just know what kind of bolts go on a race car and what kind of bolts go on the body, and I had those. That's why I started the business more or less in the racing community, because I was already a little bit further along. I already had a little bit of a following, more or less. I already had people that knew me. I kind of knew how to talk to them. I didn't know all the lingo. I had people, when I first started this thing 3 years ago, I had people calling me and emailing me, "Hey, I need," and they would say this application. I have no idea what that is, buddy. Like, I'm the bolt guy, and I have no idea what you're talking about. And it was kind of a, I don't want to say an eye opener, but it was more or less a hurdle that I had to really get over. If I'm going to do this, I have to learn. I have to know what is what, and what not to do, and what not to say, and that type of thing. Because at the end of the day, if these types of bolts are holding up 10,000 pounds above people's heads, it needs to be right. At some point, safety is involved, and well-being is involved for sure, and definitely a reputation. One bad mess up, of either putting the wrong bolt or getting the wrong product to somebody and they use it incorrectly, or if they order something, I have to say, hey, this application is for a specific use and specific use only. If you use it for anything else, it's incorrect. Mm-hmm. Just like in stainless. I mean, I have to say that to some people, like, hey, you can't bolt on your hitch to your trailer with a stainless bolt. It might mm-hmm. work for a minute, but if you hit the brakes real hard, they'll shear them right off, or something along really load bearing. I tell them, no, it's not meant for that. You can't use that, because at some point, it's gonna fail.
Well, and speaking of that, what are some examples of specific challenges or some issues that racers might face if they're using subpar bolts or fasteners, and how you address these concerns?
That's a tough question, actually, because everyone's got a mind of their own. They're going to do what they want to do at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. I really don't know how to answer that, to be honest with you.
In my office, we like to say, in life, there's multiple right answers. There are some that are clearly wrong, but multiple right
I can tell you what not to do. What you do with that information is up to you. Exactly.
Now, speaking of
sure.
racing, it's interesting because it's your love of racing that brought you over into the bolts business. But now that you're in the bolts and fasteners business, how much do you actually get to race anymore?
It's not near as much as I want to. I just started back. Racing earlier this year. A good friend of mine that I've known and raced with for a long time. His name's Sean Smith. He might even heard of him. His son is Brendan Smith. They run super late models and they run the series and whatnot. Lucas Oil, and they run what they can and when they can. But they do that full time. And I happened to be talking to Sean one night, and he had a doctor appointment or something, and I went over there. He wasn't able to work on the car, and they were getting ready for Speed Weeks this last year. And I talked to Brandon. He's like, "Yeah, Dad can't work. I need help. I can't do all this work by myself." So I went over there to help him, and we were talking and hanging out. And they had at one point they had up to 9 race cars there. They had a lot of race cars that they just accumulated. They traded some with a buddy, and they just couldn't sell some of them. They were in the transition of going from Rockets to Longhorns, and then now they're back at Rocket, and they just ended up having all these race cars. And so they had a car there, and actually the car that was there was Kyle Bronson's car in 2019. It was an XR1 that Kyle Bronson took to Eldora, one of his supercars. It was just sitting there. And I asked him, "Hey, what does this car need to go racing, to go crate racing?" And he kind of told me a list. I was like, "Man, there's not much. It needed a motor and a few other things." So he's like, we kind of struck up a deal right there. And he's like, "If you buy the motor, I'll let you drive the car." I was like, "Done deal." So I bought a motor. I bought a motor for one of my customers. They came down from Delaware for the Speed Weeks last year, and they brought this motor down for Speed Weeks, and we did some wheeling and dealing, and I traded him some bolts and gave him some money, and we kind of come up to an agreement, whatever, and I got the motor from him, and I slapped the motor in there, and then it was, I think when I first got it done, I raced once or twice, I think, trying to get the bugs out, and then we didn't race at all for the summer. And then I just tried to race this past weekend, and I'm still trying to get the bugs worked out of it. But I don't get to race near as much. I'm definitely not going to be racing much in the next couple of weeks. We already have our fall event scheduled for the end of October. I think our first kickoff race will be the Powell Memorial at All-Tech Speedway on October 19th, 20th, and 21st for the USA Crate Racing. $28,000 to win. So if you're in the South Georgia or Florida, make sure you guys come. We'll be there set up right about that time. Everybody's starting to think about rebuild season, and we do pretty good there. We've set up, and we're more or less just convenience. Shipping is just, it's outrageous nowadays. Firsthand. You ship stuff every day, and I ship stuff all day, every day. That's what we do. And I had bought a box of nuts, the large flange body nuts from a supplier out of Atlanta last week. I bought a box of like 5,000, whatever. And it weighed, I think, 60 pounds. No, 38 pounds is what it was. It cost me almost $80 to ship it from Atlanta to here. $80 for one box of bolts or nuts, excuse me. But It's just ridiculous. We bought the trailer. When we first started this thing, I had zero intention of being trackside, being a vendor. I never even considered it. But I bought a trailer. I got a good deal on a trailer. I was originally thinking that I would sell merchandise. I still will. That's why I bought the trailer. Like, I'll set up merchandise trailer, whatever. And then I started slapping a few bolts in there, and we went to, we go do a show, whatever, and it turned out to be like, "Oh, you got this, you got that." Like, yeah, I got all that. Next thing you know, we're selling bolts. And so now we have a whole setup, tent and flags and tables and a whole display. to make sure everybody gets what they need when they need it at the races.
Well, that's super convenient. Because yeah, bolts are kind of like fittings. There are a few things that are more frustrating than when you're, kind of at the end of being able to put stuff together and then you're missing a fitting or you're missing a bolt.
Oh yeah, it's
That just
and
sucks.
it's terrible. It's terrible. I'm sure you get people who call you, "Hey, I race tomorrow. I need this part today."
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Are you serious? My chair's drooping down.
Well, I've got a comment here, and if anybody has any comments or questions, feel free to drop them in. And I see Scott's here. He's always our first person to comment. He says, "Happy Monday, Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day from California, and congratulations, Alex Hendren, on the Carolina win." Yes, that was cool.
Nice.
Alex has been on the show, and he just won over the weekend. He won the King of the Carolinas for the
Me and
second
Alex
year in a
are
row. Yeah, you and Alex are what?
We're friends on Snapchat, so I see all this.
Oh,
stuff.
nice. Yeah, so he's been a great guest on the show before too. Yeah, I've been watching him since he first started racing. So, of course, he's right here local and great guy. So I'm very excited for him.
I've
I'm very
never
happy for the
personally
win.
met him, but we're friends on Snapchat, so we're basically.
Oh
You know
yeah,
how
you're
it works.
besties. Well, you were probably only about 15 feet away from him at the cars racing show. So
Oh really?
yeah, his car was in the Blue Ridge, the Blue Ridge
Okay. Yeah.
booth.
Okay.
An American Racer. So really just like 2 booths away from you.
Literally right down.
It
Rock throwing.
really like, yeah, you could throw a rock. Yep, just on the other side of the DRP booth was where he was at there. So yeah, you'll probably get to meet him this year because I know you're coming back to the Cars Racing Show. And for anybody who doesn't know, that show is happening January 5th and 6th, 2024 at the Hickory Metro Convention Center in Hickory, North Carolina. And for more information, you can go to carsracingshow.com and just get signed up on our email list, and we'll keep everybody informed about, everything that's going on. So, yeah. Or any other manufacturers. I know there's a few manufacturers that might watch our show. And if you're interested in being a part of the racing show, I guess I didn't mean to put like a commercial break in, but here we are.
That's all right. Gotta give it a shout out for sure.
Absolutely. Well, it's just interesting. It's how all the worlds collide, how everything comes together for sure.
Right.
Let's see. So, racing conditions can be pretty tough on bolts and fasteners. And, how do your bolts and fasteners compare, on a durability and a reliability? I know that you're kind of the low price leader when it comes to a lot of these. But is that what are we looking at for quality and how reliable are your products in those extreme racing conditions?
So I can tell you firsthand, I don't make the bolts. We don't make the bolts. The only thing we make in-house is the kits. We assemble all of our kits. We assemble all of our orders here. We have 17 suppliers all over the world. About a dozen of them are in the United States. But we have our main supplier is worldwide. So they have manufacturers in China, Taiwan, Italy. I think there's some in Germany as well. And then they have like 3 or 4 of them here in the United States. So as far as application goes, it's all kind of varies. But as far as quality goes, it's all part of the same spectrum of specs, if you will. So let's just say it's on the same spectrum as medicine, because everyone has FDA approved, whatever. It's the same thing. It's not necessarily the FDA, but it's the same standards. That product has to meet the same benchmark in China as it does in the United States. Even though it's United States made, and the material might be a little bit more pure, and your money's going to a good cause, and you're keeping your money here in the United States, there's definitely a benefit there. As far as quality goes, I guarantee you not one person can, if I held a China bolt in one hand and an American bolt in the other hand, I guarantee nobody knows the difference. They wouldn't know the difference by looking at it.
So a grade 5 is the same. I mean, a grade 5 is a grade 5 is a grade 5, correct?
Grade 5. It all has to meet the benchmarks and the expectations of the standards. So the standard is grade 5. That's kind of code word for it has to meet this many pounds of tensile strength. It has to meet this many pounds of shear strength. It has to meet this type of material. It has to meet this, this, and this, and this. It's a checklist for every application. So when you want grade 5, it means you're going to get a bolt that's about medium grade. It's going to be about medium strength, but you might save a little bit of money as far as price goes. Or if you need something for high strength applications, you would have to be grade 8 or L9 or grade 12, or the grades go all the way up. But as far as that's the standard, grades are the standard, and a grade 8 China bolt is the same as a grade 8 American bolt, but at the end of the day, they have to meet the same benchmarks. Not to say that out of the billions and billions of bolts companies make, that they might not have 1 or 2 or 10 or 100 million or whatever of them malfunction or not be done right. But at the end of the day, nobody has, they don't have a PSI tester to see how many pounds of torque it took to break that bolt. So they just say, oh, well, that cheap bolt broke. It just broke because it broke, whether it was broke because it obviously exceeded its application. But who's to say that an element of the weather or something, or rust or something, or there's an air pocket in the forge or something like that, there's a 1.5 billion excuses or reasons why a bolt broke. But as far as the quality goes, we don't make anything. We stand behind everything that we do sell 100%. But we've done all the vetting process through our suppliers to make sure that we're not buying junk, obviously, to make sure we're buying high quality stuff, because this, at the end of the day, I keep referring back to safety. We're doing 100 plus miles an hour to these things. The stuff has to work, it has to work. It has to be strong. It has to do its job, and it can't be junk. But we have a bunch of suppliers, and as far as quality goes, we're right there next to anybody else. And then, what was your other question there? I've been over here rambling.
Oh no, I mean, and it was just a question on that, and that you vetted the suppliers, because I mean, I don't know this, but have you also heard, are there like counterfeit bolts kind of out there? And
yeah, there's a ton of them that people, if they buy a lathe, they think they're a bolt manufacturer, or some kind of fastener manufacturer. Yes, because you can make it does not mean that it meets any requirements. And because you stamp it on there doesn't mean it meets the requirements. It has to be put through rigorous testing and application testing. And it has to be trialed. It just has to be trialed. That's how these manufacturers are doing it. I mean, when you open up a manufacturer, their budget or whatever is $1 million in testing to make sure that the product that they put out, they can stand behind it. They put out $5 million worth of product, and every bolt that they make breaks or fails them one way or another. They won't last very long.
Yeah. So how can racers, I mean, obviously coming to you, then they know they're getting some good, solid quality parts. But
Sure.
is there, I mean, there's always that temptation of, oh man, I can get like 1,000 bolts for like $3, if I order them from whatever, wish.com. The wish version.
You get what you pay for. At the end of the day, you get what you pay for. And anybody with common sense and that actually cares about the race cars will not just go with the cheapest route. We are the cheapest route on all of our body stuff, bottom line. But when you start transitioning into chassis kits and actually suspension stuff, we are not the cheapest by any means. We are, matter of fact, probably one of the more expensive, because there's a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of good quality product that we put in there to make sure that it is top notch. Body fasteners can fall off all day long. They won't hurt nobody. I mean, generally speaking, they won't hurt anybody if a body bolt breaks or your fender flies off or whatever. If a suspension shock bolt breaks, that can be devastating. That could be, I mean, the options of what could happen are endless. At that point, the
Carnage.
safety. Yeah, carnage. Yeah, you're tearing up unnecessary stuff. You're spending money that you shouldn't spend because a bolt broke or whatever. But we're definitely highest quality when it comes to our chassis kits outside of the manufacturer or whatever. I talked to a chassis manufacturer on the phone. I won't say who, but I talked to a chassis manufacturer last week or whatever, 2 weeks ago, and they actually reached out to me like, hey, we want to do a bolt kit for our chassis, but first we want to make sure you can beat the price. I was like, well, if you're looking for beating price, I mean, if apples are apples, but at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about the price, it's about the quality of the kit and the quality of the material that goes in it and the homework that it takes, the hours. I have a guy that works for us full time, and all he does is build kits. He just builds chassis kit, body kits, whatever we put together, and that's what he does. And it takes him hours upon hours to build, let's say, 3 or 4 XR1 kits. For one, you have to make sure there's almost 36 different applications in an XR1 chassis kit. You have to make sure it's all here first, and then you have to make sure you have enough for 3 kits. It's a lot of math involved. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. And I did it before he did it, and it was a pain in the butt when I did it. I tell you, it was horrible. But now he does it, and he does a good job, and he makes sure everything's tip top and done exactly like it's supposed to. Because we have to do when we first start a new chassis kit, we have to tear apart a whole car. I do it. I go to wherever the car's at. We did a Longhorn. We do the Sniper chassis. I went to Ricky Wise's shop last year, right before the Million. We stayed there for 3 days. 3 days, and I took the whole car apart from nose to tail. Bumper bolts, motor plates, everything. I took it all apart. I measured it and said, okay, well, we can try, and that's where a lot of the homework comes in, is what application do you want for which bolt? Do you want a flange nut here? Do you want a lock nut with a washer here? Do you want a flange bolt here? Do you want a regular hex cap grade 8 bolt with a washer? Do you want a washer at all? Do you want, there's a million, and that's where we did our homework. We did it for Longhorn. We did Rocket. We did it for Sniper. We did it for double nickel chassis there.
I just talked to Benji today, actually. Benji Hicks, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a good dude. We build all his chassis kits for all his cars. We do Warrior. We do Project X too. All the bolts on Chad Thrash's car comes from us. Actually, at your show last year, I gave him 2 kits for the 2 new cars that he brought, and then we ended up putting our sticker up on the side of the car for him. So all the fasteners and everything that come off that chassis came from us. But yeah, we do the whole thing. It's a lot of homework. I mean, people don't understand. It's not just following a list. For one, who's got a list? I've asked. I don't know anybody that's got a list other than the guy that builds the car, and he has to make the list, and it takes hours.
Well, but do they? Because it's kind of like
I can tell you, Chad Thrash didn't have a list until I made him make one. He made one.
Yeah, because it's like, well, hey, I need a bolt, and then you just kind of have your pile of bolts, and you're just like, okay, I think let me see if this one fits, and then I would guess that's how some of that gets done.
Yeah, for sure. You broke up there for a quick second.
Gotcha.
The whole first
part.
Part.
Oh yeah, I would just imagine that when you're slinging a chassis together, that sometimes it's just like, oh, I need a bolt, and you just got this box of bolts, and you're just kind of grabbing something, and this works.
Last year we did an interview. Maybe it was 2 years ago. We did an interview at the car show. I was like, man, I don't care who you are, and I don't care what you do, but everybody has a drawer full of bolts or a bucket in their shop full of bolts.
Yep.
We're here to replace that. When everybody needs, I went to a shop the other day, and this guy, he's local. This guy builds massive SEMA projects for the SEMA show. He builds these massive trucks and these side by sides, and he does all this custom work. And he invited me over there to take a look at what he's got and about get him set up and then whatnot. I'm like, so where's your bolt bin? Oh, we don't have one. This is what we have. He pulls out two 5-gallon two 5-gallon buckets of bolts and just dumps them on the ground. I was like, you're joking. That's a joke, right? He goes, nope, we do it every day. I was like, you have lost your mind. So it's just now we got him set up with a nice custom bolt bin. There's one right behind. There's a picture of one right behind me right there. The only difference between the stickers that are the kits that we make now is our stickers are not white; they're green now. They're actually pretty. It's got a QR code on there, so you can scan it. It'll kick you right to the website. You can pick and choose which bolts you need to refill your bolt bin. If you nope, there they are.
Yeah, broke up a little bit. Guess we're losing signal, but I'm loving this idea of this bolt bin. I think I might need one of
But
them.
we have a hello, are you there?
I'm here. Yeah. I'm here. Yeah. Yeah. I guess we've got a rough connection tonight. I can hear you just fine. Yeah, keep talking. Yeah. I just sent you a text message.
Oh, there you go. Oh. I see you now.
Okay, good. Yeah, it says what happened. I don't know. We got a weird connection tonight, but I can hear you just fine. And I might need one of them bolt bins because that's super cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we sell those bolt bins right there. We have, I think, 3 or 4 different sizes, pieces. If you want a small one, big one, we have one that goes up to 10,000 plus pieces. Small ones for small applications. We have some in stainless. If you do a lot of stainless work, we have metric. We have metric flange. We have grade 8, grade 5. I mean, there's anything you want, we do. We sell it right on our website. You can give us a call, 813-787-9774, and say, hey, I own a business. Hey, I got a body shop. Hey, I got this. Hey, I got that. And we'll send it straight to you, and we'll ship it for free. All of our bolt bins cost about $250 to ship. We ship it for free. I don't know if there's anybody else out there that does that, but we do it. We ship it for free. If you're a local company in the area and you want a bolt bin, we usually set it up for free too. So the installation is $250 to install. It takes about 2 hours to install. We build the whole unit. We label the unit like it's supposed to be labeled. We install all the bolts in there. We take away all the trash. We do everything. We do all that for free. The only thing you pay for is the bolt bin itself. There's not many companies out there that do that. We've learned being on the other opposites exactly what these racers go through on a weekly basis, and the time that they don't have to search for a bolt, the time that they don't have to find the right nut. In this kit right here, if you were to a chassis kit, a body kit, and a bolt bin, you're set for life. Like, you are good to go. You don't ever need to struggle to find a bolt again.
So you're just offering such a great service, and I know we've been kind of struggling with the connection tonight, so we might kind of wrap things up. And I really appreciate all of your insight. Let people know where they can find you. Oh, and I guess our connection is a little bit messed up here, but oh, there you are. Hey Steve, let people know where they can find you or get a hold of you.
You can find us on our website.
Mm. And we'll have that all in the show notes as well, for all how to contact Steve. And of course, Crate Insider is a dealer as well. And thank you so much, Steve, for being on the show. Thank you all for listening and watching. You can always catch us live 7 p.m. on Monday nights on Facebook and on YouTube. And then if you want to just listen to the replay of the podcast, you can catch us on Spotify, Apple iTunes, Google Play, anywhere where you're going to listen to podcasts. And so, again, thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good one.